In a significant move to reshape the narrative surrounding American history, President Donald J. Trump has announced an executive order aimed at restoring what he describes as truth and sanity to the nation's historical discourse. This initiative, unveiled on March 27, 2025, comes in response to what Trump characterizes as a decade-long campaign to distort the facts of American history through a lens of ideological revisionism. The administration argues that this trend undermines the country's foundational achievements and promotes division rather than unity. Trump's directive highlights the perceived impact of the previous administration's policies on institutions such as the Smithsonian Institution, which he claims has adopted a divisive race-centered ideology that mischaracterizes American values as oppressive. For instance, he points to exhibits like The Shape of Power, Stories of Race and American Sculpture, which critiques the historical use of race to perpetuate systems of privilege. Such narratives, according to Trump, contribute to a culture of national shame that obscures the progress the United States has made in advancing liberty and equality. The executive order outlines a comprehensive strategy to save the Smithsonian and other federal sites dedicated to history. This includes a mandate for the Vice President and the Office of Management and Budget to collaborate on ensuring that federal funds are allocated only to projects that align with the administration's vision of an inspirational portrayal of American heritage. The order stipulates that future appropriations must prohibit expenditures that promote divisive ideologies or that diminish the achievements of significant historical figures. One of the key components of the order is the restoration of Independence National Historical Park, ensuring that its infrastructure is improved in time for the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence in 2026. The order also empowers the Secretary of the Interior to assess and potentially reinstate public monuments and memorials that have been altered or removed under what Trump describes as a false reconstruction of American history. Critics of the executive order warn that this approach may further entrench ideological divides in American society. They argue that the emphasis on a singular narrative of American history risks erasing the complexities and challenges that have shaped the nation. As Trump's administration continues to navigate its second term, the implications of this order on educational institutions and public discourse could be profound, influencing how history is taught and understood in the United States. Moreover, Trump's initiative coincides with a broader political landscape marked by heightened tensions and scrutiny of his administration's policies. The recent fallout from a Signal group chat involving high-ranking officials has raised questions about operational security and professionalism within the administration. As noted by analysts, this incident reflects a larger pattern of behavior that has led to bipartisan calls for greater accountability and oversight. As the Trump administration advances its agenda, the intersection of history, politics, and national identity remains a pivotal battleground. The ongoing debates about the portrayal of history and the policies surrounding it will likely shape the political discourse leading up to the 2026 midterm elections and beyond. With public sentiment increasingly divided on issues of race and history, the administration's stance could have significant ramifications on its support base and electoral prospects. In conclusion, Trump's executive order to restore what he terms truth and sanity to American history signals a decisive pivot in the administration's approach to national narrative. As the impacts of this order unfold, it will be crucial to observe how it influences public discourse and the broader landscape of American history education. The coming years will undoubtedly reveal whether this initiative fosters a renewed sense of national unity or exacerbates existing divisions within American society. In a significant move that reflects the current administration's historical narrative priorities, President Donald J. Trump has signed an executive order aimed at reshaping how American history is presented in federal institutions. Titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History, the directive underscores a growing concern among Trump's supporters regarding what they describe as a revisionist approach to history that undermines the foundational values of the United States. The executive order, issued on March 27, 2025, articulates a mission to counter what Trump perceives as a concerted effort to distort American history through an ideological lens. In his statement, the president asserted over the past decade Americans have witnessed a concerted and widespread effort to rewrite our nation's history, replacing objective facts with a distorted narrative driven by ideology rather than truth. He accused previous administrations of fostering a climate that promotes divisive and negative interpretations of America's past, which he argues leads to societal rifts and a sense of national shame. Central to Trump's initiative is a specific focus on the Smithsonian Institution, which he claims has succumbed to an ideology that misrepresents American and Western values as inherently harmful. The executive order instructs Vice President J.D. Vance to actively work with the Smithsonian's Board of Regents to eliminate what Trump labels improper ideology from exhibits and educational programs. This directive aims to ensure that federal museums and parks serve as uplifting representations of American heritage rather than platforms for ideological indoctrination. The implications of this executive order extend beyond historical representation. It signals a broader strategy by the Trump administration to reshape cultural narratives in the United States. Trump's critiques of the Smithsonian include references to specific exhibits that promote discussions of race and power dynamics, such as The Shape of Power, Stories of Race and American Sculpture, which he claims perpetuates divisive narratives. Furthermore, the National Museum of African American History and Culture has faced scrutiny for characterizing concepts like hard work and individualism as aspects of white culture, which Trump contends is an unwarranted framing of American values. In addition to the Smithsonian, the order mandates the Secretary of the Interior to review public monuments and memorials under the department's jurisdiction to determine whether they have been altered in ways that misrepresent American history or diminish the significance of historical figures and events. The order suggests reinstating monuments that align more closely with the administration's interpretation of American greatness and erasing descriptions deemed disparaging to the nation's past. As the administration moves forward with these changes, it faces potential backlash from educators, historians, and cultural institutions that argue for a more nuanced understanding of history that includes critical perspectives on race, gender, and other social issues. Critics fear that altering historical narratives to fit a specific political agenda may undermine educational integrity and limit discourse on America's complex past. The executive order is part of a larger narrative strategy that has emerged in the early days of Trump's second term, reflecting a commitment to reshaping not just policy but also the cultural landscape of the nation. The administration's approach raises questions about the role of government in historical interpretation and the potential consequences for institutions that serve as custodians of American history. Looking ahead, the impact of this executive action will be closely monitored as it unfolds. The administration's efforts to redefine historical narratives will likely continue to provoke debate, with implications for education, cultural institutions, and society at large. As the country approaches the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence in 2026, the question remains: how will these changes influence the collective memory and understanding of American history in the years to come? In a week marked by political turbulence and heightened scrutiny, the Trump administration has found itself at the center of multiple controversies that could have far-reaching implications. From a group chat leak involving sensitive military information to new tariffs that threaten to increase consumer prices, the administration is navigating a complex landscape of national security, immigration policy, and economic strategy. The week began with the revelation that members of Trump's national security team, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, inadvertently included a reporter from The Atlantic in a Signal group chat discussing military operations. This incident raised significant concerns about operational security and professionalism, as sensitive details about imminent military actions were discussed on a platform deemed vulnerable to hacking, particularly by foreign adversaries like Russia. NPR's Domenico Montanaro noted the carelessness shown by President Trump's cabinet is stunning and dangerous, highlighting the gravity of the situation. In response to the fallout, Trump downplayed the significance of the leak, framing it as part of a witch hunt against his administration.
He insisted that no classified information was shared, a claim that was met with skepticism from lawmakers who demanded a thorough investigation.
Notably, Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker, chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, called for an expedited report emphasizing the need for transparency in discussions that touch on national security.
Compounding the administration's challenges, Trump announced a new 25% tariff on foreign-made cars and auto parts.
A move that is likely to exacerbate inflationary pressures on American consumers. Critics argue that this approach contradicts Trump's initial campaign promise to lower prices for everyday Americans.
Kristen Soltis Anderson, a Republican pollster, stated voters are now asking, "Where's the reduced cost of living I was looking for?" With consumer confidence plummeting to a 12-year low, the potential economic fallout could pose a significant political liability for the GOP in the upcoming midterm elections. On the immigration front, the administration has intensified its deportation efforts, drawing criticism from advocates and legal experts. This week, Trump sought to invoke the rarely used Alien Enemies Act to deport Venezuelan migrants, a move that has faced judicial pushback. A federal judge temporarily blocked these deportations, citing due process concerns.
The Justice Department has since filed an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court, arguing that the judiciary should not interfere with the president's national security decisions. This legal battle underscores the ongoing tensions between the executive branch and the courts, particularly in matters of immigration and national security. The administration's approach to dissent has also drawn ire, particularly in the case of a Tufts University graduate student who was detained by immigration authorities after expressing her political views on the Gaza conflict. Lawmakers have condemned her arrest as a chilling infringement on free speech, underscoring the delicate balance the administration strikes between national security interests and individual rights. As the week concluded, Trump's administration faced mounting pressure from both sides of the aisle over its handling of sensitive information and its broader policy agenda. The implications of these controversies extend beyond immediate political fallout. They threaten to reshape public perception of the administration as it grapples with economic challenges and contentious social issues. Looking ahead, the administration's ability to navigate these turbulent waters will be put to the test. As the Supreme Court weighs in on the deportation issue and lawmakers continue to push for accountability regarding the Signal chat leak, the Trump administration must contend with an increasingly skeptical public and a political landscape that remains deeply divided. The coming weeks may prove critical as the administration seeks to solidify its agenda amidst growing scrutiny and potential backlash from constituents. In a dramatic escalation of trade tensions, President Donald Trump has announced a sweeping raft of tariffs that could reshape the landscape of U.S. trade policy. On March 26, 2025, he declared a 25% tariff on all foreign-made vehicles, set to take effect on April 2, a day he has whimsically dubbed Liberation Day. This move has sent ripples through the automotive industry and beyond, raising concerns about price hikes for consumers, retaliatory actions from trade partners, and broader implications for the U.S. economy. Trump's latest round of tariffs is part of a broader strategy to protect American industries and jobs. However, the implications of this aggressive trade policy are complex. According to market analysts, the tariffs could lead to significant increases in the price of vehicles. Estimates suggest a potential rise of up to $15,000 for some models. This will continue to spur growth like you haven't seen, Trump stated, asserting that U.S. automobile manufacturing would flourish as a result. Yet many economists caution that such price spikes could stoke inflationary pressures, complicating the Federal Reserve's plans to cut interest rates. The automotive sector has already begun to feel the impact. Stocks for major U.S. automakers including General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis saw steep declines following the announcement, with GM shares dropping nearly 8% in one day. Meanwhile, Tesla, which manufactures all its vehicles in the U.S., experienced a modest uptick in stock price as investors appeared to view it as somewhat insulated from the impending tariffs. Internationally, the response has been swift and foreboding. The European Union has threatened counter-tariffs on U.S. goods worth $28 billion. while Canada has indicated it may retaliate with its own set of duties. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney described the tariffs as a direct attack on auto workers and vowed to defend the industry. Nothing is off the table, he warned, hinting at potential measures that could impact U.S. exports significantly. Moreover, Trump's trade war is not limited to automobiles. He has enacted tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, and his administration is contemplating further duties on lumber and pharmaceuticals. The Congressional Budget Office has projected that these tariffs could gross $800 billion over the next decade, yet this figure does not account for the potential backlash from other nations or the inflationary effects that could arise from increased costs for consumers and businesses alike. The broader economic context is troubling. Recent data indicates that consumer confidence has plummeted to its lowest level since early 2021. With many Americans bracing for higher prices and economic uncertainty. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, a key measure of inflation, rose by 2.8% in February, indicating that price pressures are already mounting. Economists warn that continued uncertainty around tariffs could push consumers to tighten their spending, leading to a slowdown in growth as inflationary pressures mount. As the April 2 deadline approaches, the situation remains fluid. Trump has promised to provide details on how reciprocal tariffs will be structured, suggesting that some countries may be treated more favorably than others. Yet the mixed signals from the White House have left many in the business community anxious about the future. People are going to be pleasantly surprised, Trump claimed, but the reality on the ground may tell a different story. As we look toward the future, the ramifications of these tariffs are likely to unfold in unpredictable ways. Whether they will succeed in revitalizing American manufacturing or lead to a trade war that harms both U.S. and global economies remains to be seen. The next few weeks will be critical in determining the trajectory of U.S. trade policy, consumer prices, and the broader economic landscape as industries brace for the fallout from Liberation Day. In a dramatic shift that has reverberated through Canada's military landscape, President Donald Trump's administration is fundamentally altering the country's defense strategies and priorities. Historically, Canada has relied heavily on its southern neighbor for security, maintaining a military force designed more as a supportive entity to U.S. operations than as an independent combat-ready unit. However, recent geopolitical tensions and Trump's unpredictable approach to international relations have forced Canadian leaders to reconsider their long-standing assumptions about defense. Canada's military, which currently operates with a budget that hovers well below 2% of its GDP, is grappling with significant personnel shortages, outdated equipment, and infrastructure decay. The Canadian Armed Forces (CAF) are budgeted for 101,500 personnel but are currently short by 16,500. Although the government has initiated a refurbishment process to modernize the CAF, the pace of change is painfully slow and the military's overall capability remains questionable. For decades, Canada's defense strategy has been predicated on the assumption of a benign relationship with the United States. This reliance has allowed Canada to allocate resources elsewhere, essentially viewing its military as a complement to U.S. forces rather than a self-sufficient entity. However, Trump's recent threats of economic coercion and annexation have sent shockwaves through Canadian political circles, prompting leaders to reassess their dependency on American might. As a result, Ottawa is actively exploring alternatives to U.S. suppliers for critical military equipment, including a significant review of its planned $13 billion purchase of 88 F-35 fighter jets from Lockheed Martin. In a recent statement, Philippe Lagasse, a noted international affairs expert from Carleton University, emphasized the gravity of this situation. Canada's leaders have suddenly realized they may not be able to rely on American might anymore, he noted, highlighting a pivotal moment in Canadian defense policy. The very notion of decoupling from U.S. military suppliers, once considered unthinkable, is now being actively discussed. This shift could exacerbate existing weaknesses in the CAF, leaving it even less capable of independent action on the global stage. As these developments unfold, The implications for Canada's security posture are profound. If the CAF continues down this path of decoupling, it risks not only operational inefficiencies but also a diminished ability to contribute meaningfully to US-led missions, which have historically been its primary role. Moreover, this transition comes at a time when the global security environment is increasingly volatile, underscoring the urgent need for Canada to bolster its own military capabilities. The changes in Canada's military strategy are emblematic of a broader re-evaluation of defense priorities in the face of shifting geopolitical realities. As Canada seeks to navigate its relationship with the United States amidst Trump's unpredictable foreign policy, the future of its military readiness hangs in the balance. The outcome of this reassessment will significantly shape Canada's role in international security for years to come. As it grapples with the challenge of ensuring its sovereignty in an era marked by uncertainty and potential conflict, as Canada gears up for a pivotal federal election on April 28, the political climate is charged with uncertainty and urgency, particularly in light of rising tensions with the United States under the leadership of President Donald Trump. Prime Minister Mark Carney's decision to call a snap election reflects the growing unease among Canadians regarding the future of their nation's relationship with their southern neighbor. In an intriguing exploration of public sentiment, the BBC sought to understand how voters in Toronto envision their approach to handling Trump, whether through defiance or diplomacy. The stakes have never been higher as trade tensions escalate and fears of economic repercussions loom large. Many Canadians are left grappling with the question of how best to navigate this complex landscape. In a series of interviews, voters expressed a mix of frustration and pragmatism, revealing a nuanced understanding of the challenges ahead. One respondent articulated a desire for diplomacy, suggesting that maintaining open lines of communication is crucial for both countries. Conversely, another voter expressed a more defiant stance, advocating for a stronger Canadian identity independent of U.S. influence. This sentiment reflects a broader trend across North America, where leaders and citizens alike are re-evaluating long-standing alliances and strategies. The upcoming election not only represents a moment of reflection for Canadians but also poses significant implications for the future of US-Canada relations. As tensions simmer, analysts warn that a failure to address these issues could lead to further economic fallout and strained diplomatic ties. In parallel, the political atmosphere in the United States is also shifting, especially as Trump embarks on a second term that promises to redefine American foreign policy. The former president's recent comments regarding nuclear diplomacy signal a potential pivot in international relations, particularly concerning the United States' stance towards Russia and China. Charles Oppenheimer, grandson of the famed atomic bomb creator, recently voiced his support for Trump's calls for direct negotiations on nuclear disarmament with these major powers. He emphasized the necessity of cooperation over conflict, arguing that the escalating arms race poses an existential threat to global security. Oppenheimer's perspective highlights a crucial point: the dangers of a fragmented international approach to nuclear weapons can lead to catastrophic outcomes. He advocates for a united front among nuclear powers to prevent further proliferation and reduce the overall threat. This aligns with the broader concerns expressed by many Canadians about the necessity of diplomacy in the face of rising global tensions. Meanwhile, the dynamics of the Quad, a strategic alliance comprising the US, Australia, Japan, and India, continue to evolve under Trump's administration. His approach appears more cooperative than antagonistic, focusing on strengthening regional security amidst growing concerns over China's influence. However, experts caution that internal divisions among Quad members regarding their respective strategies towards China could undermine the alliance's effectiveness. The potential for a reconfiguration of the Quad, perhaps at the expense of India's involvement, underscores the volatility of the current geopolitical landscape. As the Canadian election approaches, the prevailing sentiment among voters reflects a desire for a balanced approach that prioritizes diplomatic engagement while asserting national interests. The outcomes of these elections and the subsequent strategies adopted by both Canada and the US will undoubtedly shape the future of North American relations and the broader global order. In conclusion, the unfolding political narratives in Canada and the United States signal a transformative period marked by uncertainty and potential. As both nations navigate the complexities of international diplomacy, the focus will increasingly shift towards fostering collaboration while navigating the challenges posed by aggressive foreign policies.
The decisions made in the coming months will not only impact bilateral relations but could also redefine the global diplomatic landscape as we know it.